And before I go, I want to turn my attention to something else that is really important. If you've been following global headlines, there's been a lot of interest, a lot of discussion around semiconductors. There's been a absolutely stunning bull market taking place on the NASDAQ and on global stock markets in the semiconductor space. NVIDIA, of course, but ASML, many other plays in the semiconductor sector have been seeing a lot of buying, a lot of interest. That's because obviously semiconductors are the basis on which the entire modern global economy is built and the basic building blocks for AI as well. But there are concerns as well. And a fresh concern continues to raise its head very frequently. And that's the possibility of security risks, cybersecurity risks. And specifically, today, I want to talk about one particular threat, the risk of Chinese trapdoors in certain individual chipsets. Now, what's a trapdoor? A trapdoor is something in an electronic device that could lead to spying, to unauthorized transmission of data to unknown location, and to other such things. This is obviously very risky. Suppose you're talking on the phone. Suppose you put chips into your company, your entire company's backbone is running on a certain set of chips. And let's say there are trapdoors on that which allow spying and unauthorized transmissions to be taking place. Let's say those are Chinese chips or Chinese hardware that has been set inside there and data is being taken off somewhere. It's industrial espionage of some level. Now, the Chinese will say this is just fear-mongering and it's protectionism in another door. But let's face it, those are real concerns that many countries around the world have. It's one of the reasons why countries like India, for example, have decided to limit their exposure to Chinese telecom equipment. In January 2023, this was a stance that was taken, which was then also exacerbated by incidents that took place on the border. The US has followed suit. It's banned the import and sale of telecom equipment of Chinese firms such as ZTE and Huawei, citing security concerns. This was done in November 2022. And the US is also banning the export of certain critical technologies, both for chip design and for manufacture, to China. But where are we positioned in all of this? How safe is India right now? And how careful should we continue to be? Let's get in the real expert in this field to shed some light on the subject. So with a lot of excitement around semiconductors all around the world and these security concerns, specifically when it comes to Chinese chips, who better to get a sense of what's actually happening than Ajai Chowdhury, who's the co-founder of HCL, also advisor to India's semiconductor mission, so helping to drive that entire strategy going forward. Ajay, thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Chowdhury. Before I come to some of the security aspects, we're seeing global excitement and interest around semiconductors. We're seeing what's happening to the NVIDIA stock price. A lot of semiconductor companies are seeing a lot of interest. What's happening at a broader scale, and where's India positioned in all of this?
So basically what's happened is that US realized suddenly that they've lost 20 years. Because in these 20 years, they allowed the semiconductor center to move towards Taiwan. Now, because of the geopolitical situation, they are seriously concerned that they cannot just depend on China and Taiwan anymore. And that dependence has actually created a huge issue. And therefore, everybody in the United States is now looking at putting up semiconductor plants of all sizes and shapes. And similarly, Europe is also very concerned, and they also want to get into it, and so is Korea and Japan. So literally the whole world is clamoring to put up semiconductor facilities because they just do not want to be dependent only on Taiwan, which could be a question mark tomorrow.
That presumably is where India's opportunity also comes, and you've been leading the mission to try and get our own semiconductors up and running.
Well, actually, India has a very different requirement. India's requirement is not the latest chips. We are looking at more mature chips, which are in the 28 nanometers and above. And we are also looking at compound semiconductors. Those are the requirements that India has. And therefore, India's requirements also connect deeply to the equipment that is required for making these facilities happen. And therefore, the equipment that India needs is not in high demand as compared to the equipment that is being required for China, by the US and Europe and Korea and Japan. So actually, India is placed well, and all we need to do is to get the right partnerships going here.
Okay. Let me now turn my attention to something which is more immediate, which I think it's important for us to talk about, which are the security aspect, right? And the fact, I know you and others have been drawing a lot of people's attention to the fact that some of the Chinese chips potentially have trapdoors inside them, and it is a security concern. What can you tell us about that? What should India do?
You see, to me, Galwan looks like our Sputnik moment. We must be very clear that at one stage, China is fighting us on the border and not getting away from it and amassing troops. On the other hand, we are opening up the whole market to them. Having opened up the government market to the Chinese, the data breach that recently happened in the biometric attendance systems is very, very serious. Because suddenly 7,500 organizations are affected, and all government organizations. So it's a very serious situation, and they could be easily taking out data from these attendance systems as well. And the other more serious part is the fact that all the cameras that is installed in all the major installations of the government are all Chinese. So, we have a very serious situation of trapdoors being there in each of these chips that are put. And as a result, you could have a very serious intelligence problem. And therefore, India needs to now very clearly look at a strategy to remove these Chinese products and bring in Indian products. And Indians have these products available. So I don't know. I wonder why the government is not looking at it very seriously.
So, I understand by that would be a particular concern when it comes to, for example, defense establishments. Presumably the government's already very, very, very careful about that. But it would require, for example, for CCTV cameras to be hacked by China, wouldn't it require a very tremendous effort? I mean, it's almost it's sounding in the field of science fiction, or you're saying it's practical. Are all of these things going to be connected to the internet? And would the Chinese have the ability to get all of these chips to act in sync in some form or the other?
Oh, yes. There are so many incidents of something like this happening globally. Bloomberg reported many years ago that something like this is happening in a particular motherboard that the Chinese were manufacturing, which was called a supermicro motherboard. This supermicro motherboard had a specific chip by which they could actually enter the system and get back all information about where it's located. So, it's a very dangerous situation, and we must immediately act on this, because hacking is so easy for China. And do you remember what happened when Galwan was happening? Around that time, Chinese decided to hack our grids, and they decided that in Ladakh they wanted to bring down all the power. And later on, the power minister said, yes, we were threatened and we managed to control it. But this is exactly what Chinese will do. When they need to do it, they will do it. And, our complete telecom infrastructure is full of Chinese products. Our grids are full of Chinese products. Our surveillance is full of Chinese products. And on the other hand, something very interesting, Vikram, that's happened. Do you know that 2 years ago, China banned use of any imported PCs in any government office? So they are very clearly aware of the intelligence issues of any other country coming and snooping on them.
Which are the specific products that you would be the most concerned about? If you had to make a list of the top 3 or 4 areas of worry for you.
Well, actually, anything that has a Chinese chip, because that is where we have an issue. You look at the grids, you look at the telecom infrastructure, you look at CCTVs, you look at any of these products. Like biometrics is something I never thought they would be able to hack, but they've done it. So, these kind of issues are very, very important, and we need to ensure that the rules that the government came up in 2020 are strictly applied. Even on GEM, they don't apply this properly.
All right, Ajai Chowdhury, thank you so much. That's a very interesting point of view on what we must keep a very close eye on. And yes, sometimes we don't realize where all the possible security risks can come from. And yes, Chinese chips are in virtually everything all around us.
Everything, yes. True.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Good talking to you, Vikram. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.